the evolution of the board continues. So NHL, pretty fancy power rankings, and I've changed the board so that instead of it showing the standings, I've got right in here the matchups if they started today as of this morning. So I'm not including the fact that my Bruins, and I may have celebrated a little bit after today's game.
May have.
I may have celebrated a little bit after they held on and won a game.
A lot of it. There was lots of dancing.
I may have danced after these guys won that game. So going into tonight's action, I'm in a weird position, and I don't know how I feel about this. So Dallas is in Carolina. I'm cheering for Carolina against Dallas because I want the Carolina story to continue. I don't like cheering against my teams, but it happens, and it happens because of situations like this, where the Carolina Hurricanes comeback has been insane. Insane, and I'd like to see them beat Dallas. Montreal's in Tampa. I hate myself for this, but I'm cheering for the Montreal Canadiens tonight. I am cheering for the Montreal Canadiens tonight against Tampa Bay Lightning, and it feels dirty inside, and it makes me feel like a bad person. But I have to cheer for the Montreal Canadiens against Tampa. She knows how hard this is for me.
This is weird.
Okay, New Jersey's in Philly. It doesn't matter to me who wins that game. I would probably cheer for New Jersey just because it would take Philly off the board, but it doesn't really matter. Philly's now 7 points out, and their odds are just not there. Toronto's in Detroit. So that's another weird spot that I find myself in. I've really, really been happy watching Toronto on this run they've been on, and I've hated the Red Wings for a very long time. The fact that tonight I'm cheering for Detroit against Toronto, it's the same night I'm cheering for Montreal. There's this vitriol in my stomach. There's this whole feeling of this nausea, this nauseated feeling that's just taking over my gut. Because I have to cheer for Detroit and Montreal. I'm cheering against Dallas. And down here you got Anaheim and Edmonton. I'm cheering for the Oilers. What in the hell's going on? I have to cheer for Edmonton, Montreal, and Detroit. Just shoot me now. This is what the NHL has reduced me to. Because I want Boston to play Ottawa, not Washington, I'm reduced to cheering for Montreal against Tampa, Detroit against Toronto, and I would never cheer for the Ducks anyways, but, I want Edmonton to beat the Ducks, because then what happens is Edmonton moves over here, goes into first place, and then you've got Edmonton against Calgary in the first round. And you've got Anaheim against San Jose in the first round, which would mean that in the case of a guy who has to go to bed early, me, the only series that starts really late is Anaheim-San Jose. And who wins that series? I don't give a shit. So, because I don't care which of those two teams wins, I want them to be playing each other at, 10 o'clock at night. I don't care. They can play each other starting at 1 in the morning. Couldn't care less. And then Edmonton and Calgary starts at a more manageable 6 o'clock local time. Overtime shouldn't go beyond 10 o'clock unless it's a long overtime, and in that case, I'm fine with that, because long overtime games are fantastic. But if Edmonton beats Anaheim, I fully expect to still hear from people about how, but the Griffin Reinhart deal was bad, and the Lucic contract is horrible. Playoffs. They're in the playoffs. A contract is bad when it's a Louis Erikson's. So a bad contract isn't just looking and going, well, that's too many years. A bad contract is one that doesn't pay off for the team. The Oilers knew when they signed Lucic that contract wouldn't be worth it at the end of the contract. The good news is, look around. There are teams that are willing to pick up bad contracts, whether it's Mark Savard, who's never going to play again, Pavel Datsyuk, never going to play again, or Hartnell. Hartnell ended up getting moved in part because his contract wasn't good. There will be a team somewhere towards the end of this contract that says, we'll take Lucic, we'll take the cap hit, because we have cap space. Maybe it'll be a Vegas situation. Maybe Vegas will want a big guy and they won't have any. And the Oilers say, well, we don't have any need right now for Lucic, and we're looking to get rid of this contract. And all right, well, throw in a prospect. We'll give you this guy back. How does that sound? And the Oilers go, sure. So when people start complaining about long-term contracts, to me the long-term contracts you complain about is the Louis Eriksson for the Canucks here. Okay? That's the one you complain about because the Canucks coming into this season were obviously not contenders. Any fan who was really looking at the team honestly knew they weren't playoff contenders, much less Stanley Cup contenders. The addition of Louis Eriksson was looking back at a World Championship run that Eriksson had with the Sedins, in which they were very effective together. It is no longer that time. Eriksson had no chemistry with the Sedins at all this season. None. And last summer when I said, well, there's no guarantee you'll have it during the regular season, Canuck fans disagreed. They're like, oh, no, they were good during the World Championships. World Championships is not regular season NHL hockey. It's not the same beast. A championship tournament, you're playing 7 or 8 games. It's a one-off. Even the elimination round is a one-off. In an 82-game schedule where you're playing the same lines over and over again, teams are going to adapt. So let's say Dallas wins in Carolina and they've got these 3 fantastic lines together and they go to Tampa the next night. Tampa's going to watch what Dallas did in Carolina and they're going to adapt. And then the next team they play, like a Florida, is going to look and go, okay, here's what Tampa did, and they're going to adapt. And in a World Championship situation where every team is basically an all-star team, or in certain cases it's a World Championship where you've got a bunch of European coaches or coaches who aren't familiar with things, it's not the same. It's not the same thing at all. So I don't take a whole lot of stock into who plays well in World Championships or Olympics or any of that together because it's not regular season hockey. So back to the Lucic deal. The Lucic deal has worked because these 95 points, you can give everything to McDavid and Talbot, but in all honesty, if they pass Anaheim tonight and they get themselves into that number 1 spot, you can't do that with one player. Because if you could, Pittsburgh would be past Washington right now. Pittsburgh has got a lot of injuries. So Pittsburgh has been down and out. However, the best thing is because they got a lot of points early in the season, down and out for them is still 105 points. And if Columbus stumbles, Pittsburgh can easily get second, and they're still only 5 points back of Washington. Odds of them catching Washington are slim. However, Washington didn't do themselves any favor last night when they lost to the Coyotes. Just like St. Louis didn't do themselves any favor last night when they lost to the Avalanche. Because there's a key. You still have to win the game. I remember watching Don Taylor on Sports Page. I'm going way back. And Don Taylor would always set up a highlights package between a team that's in this position and a team that's one of the also-rans. And they'd say, well, this is a mismatch on paper, but this is why they play the game. And he'd set it up, and you'd see the underdog come out and just trash the top team. And he'd say, and that's why you play the games. You can say this team's got a really shallow schedule in terms of difficulty, but they have to win those games. And there's no given. There's a lot of teams I've watched, a lot of contending teams that struggle against those lower echelon teams because they don't make those same preparations. They don't work as hard. So for me, any team that's on this board, these are the playoff teams. These are the playoff matchups if they started as of this morning before any hockey was played. So I'm not moving Boston up into... I keep wanting to go up here. I'm not moving Boston into the Toronto spot, even though right now they're a point ahead, because Toronto has a game against Detroit tonight, which is highly winnable. And I'm not going to, count out Tampa because they've got a game against Montreal, which should be a winnable game for Montreal, but Montreal's 6 points ahead of Ottawa. It'd be understandable if they had somewhat of a letdown tonight, and Tampa comes up and gets them. And Tampa, there's more on the line for Tampa, because if they lose, then they're 4 points back at Toronto, and the odds of them making the playoffs become a little longer. In the case of Tampa and Carolina, the amount of energy they're expending trying to get to the playoffs, it's tough when you do that to then translate that into results in the first round, because you're really, really exhausted, and you're going to be playing against a Washington Capitals team that's been home and cooled for a while. They're putting up a lot of effort to hold off Columbus and Pittsburgh, but in terms of their stress level, and we have to win tonight, it's not the same as that team that's clawing and fighting and biting to get its way into the playoffs. So let me know which teams you guys are picking for tonight. Again, I feel dirty with the teams I'm cheering for. I promise I really hope, if this happens, if I have to cheer for Montreal again, at any point in time in my life, I'm going to have to rethink my life. Because it's wrong that it's almost like I have to cheer for Anaheim, but it's not quite that dirty. It's up there though, because I really don't want to cheer for Montreal, because I don't want Montreal to be the team that Boston would play in the second round. And yet what I'm cheering for is exactly that situation where Boston would go into the first round, they'd be against Ottawa, like, yay, look, we're beating Ottawa. And then round 2, damn it, it's Montreal. And then Montreal knocks my Bruins out, and then Montreal fans on my channel don't let me forget about it all summer. So I'd post a nice video about how does Dallas rebuild, and the comments would be, yeah, how does Dallas rebuild? By the way, how does Montreal's dust taste for you Boston fans? So, that's something that wouldn't be a lot of fun. What I'm also going to do, I'm going to put a line separating here for myself and for everybody else so that you can tell one is the Western Conference, one is the Eastern Conference. There. Isn't that dividing line nice? You guys are watching the evolution of the board. Isn't that nice? The evolution. And these down here that can't even be seen on the camera because it's not important right now. Those are the teams that are fighting it out. Those are the teams that are fighting it out to get into these spots. And LA I can't take off the board yet, but right now Nashville's up 2-0 on the Minnesota Wild. So we could potentially be looking at a situation where the Kings are mathematically eliminated as of today. Although, while they would be 10 points back of Nashville, because of regulation overtime wins, I don't think they're mathematically eliminated until they physically can't catch Nashville. Because if Nashville lost, let's just say Nashville blows this and loses all their games, and LA wins and they're tied, LA should have more regulation and overtime wins than Nashville. Because LA can't lose, even in overtime. So I'm pointing at something on the board that doesn't show up on camera. I swear, LA is right down here. It's right there. It's right down there. Right just below. Right there. There it is. 81 points for the Kings. So it's that time of year. It's getting kind of cozy up here and down here, and love the matchups. So I kept who's got more points, and wild cards are Calgary and Nashville. I may just put an asterisk. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Let's just put dots next to the wild card teams. For anybody coming through, there you go. There's your wild card teams. Highly, highly technical deciding I'm going to put dots next to them. I really thought about that for a second and a half. So let me know which picks you guys have tonight, both in terms of who you think's going to win and who you want to win. And no offense meant to any of these fans of teams that are being cheered against by me tonight. This is simply a Bruins fan going, I really don't want to see them against Washington. Because if they play Washington, it's over in 5. There's no way Boston has a chance against Braden Holtby and Ovechkin, and that blue line is just nasty. There's no way. Against Ottawa, they have a better chance. I still think Ottawa beats Boston, so before Ottawa fans go nuts on me, I still think Ottawa would beat Boston, but I think it would be a 7-game series, and I could see Boston knocking Ottawa out. I cannot see a situation where they would knock Washington out. Not in the first round, not this year, because Washington knows they have to get out of the first round, and they have to get out of the second round. They are bound and determined to get there. So let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, and thank you so much for watching. We've passed 3,500 subscribers today. We are less than 1,500 away from 5,000, and I owe that to each and every one of you. The video I posted earlier, the Alexei Yashin one, I suggest sharing that today. Because apparently I suckered a couple of people on this channel, and I'm very impressed with that because I was really hoping I was convincing. And I recommend sharing that with Ottawa Senators fans. Share it on a Senators message board, and I'd be interested to know how many Sens fans go, wait, really? And then they realize. So by all means, share around because I worked really hard at that. I worked really, really hard at that one. That was the idea I came up with. The other idea I had was an Alexander Daigle jersey retirement, and I thought that's just not going to work, so let's go with Yashin. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you all again soon.